This is Goku-san DBZ, and welcome back to the final installment of Top 5 Fighters list. For this time is Top 5 Favorite Fighting Games of the 8th console generation, this generation. So with that said, first some honorable mentions. Unfortunately, I can't show the case on at least half of them on the list because I ended up going digital. So I'll just mention. First up, honorable mentions. First honorable mention I have digital, and that is Dead or Alive 5 Last Round. Next honorable mention is, of course, cannot forget about one of probably the most liked Arc System Works games. That being, of course, the most recent Guilty Gear, which, of course, is one I know Maximilian Dude likes a lot. And if you're into anime fighters, this is definitely a good fighting game. But, of course, I still personally like Under Night and Birth more, which is why this only gets an honorable mention for the 8th gen. Next up of honorable mentions, didn't quite make the cut, is Injustice 2. But needless to say, I personally really liked Injustice 2. I do personally think story-wise, I liked Injustice Gods Among Us a little bit more than Injustice 2, but it just depends on the person. I think quality-wise, definitely the story mode, it definitely details like on face and everything is a lot more detailed in Injustice 2, and I really do like Injustice 2 story mode. Heck, in the future I may do a top 5 list, top 5 favorite fighting game story modes. Leave a comment below and tell me if you'd like me to do a top 5 fighters list of my personal top 5 favorite story modes in fighting games, and which ones I would recommend the most. But I will say this is definitely in my top 5 favorite story modes, easily. Though not quite as high as Injustice 1. With that said, still, it's a solid game, and I love this skin design of Superman. Plus, I think Brainiac is a good boss in this game. Next honorable mention that didn't quite make the cut, which is unfortunate even though I really enjoyed the game, and it's probably my favorite anime fighter from this gen. Well, excluding, of course, the most updated version of Under Night and Birth. But honorable mention, Dragon Ball FighterZ. No surprise given the name of my YouTube channel is Goku-san DBZ. I'm a hardcore Dragon Ball Z fan, always have been, always will be a big fan. And I love this game. This really is a love letter to Dragon Ball Z fans. And definitely Arc System Works did a great job. This is probably my second favorite Arc System Works game, right behind Under Night and Birth. But seriously, the story mode, and I just love all the freaking burn comments and stuff from Cell. It sounds like something from Team 4 Star, in my opinion. Second to last honorable mention, unfortunately didn't quite make the cut, but still gets an honorable mention. Really love this game. Street Fighter 5 Arcade Edition, which I will say, I think over time, Street Fighter 5 has gone a lot better. To be fair, I actually, of some of the, of course, more recent characters, I actually like him only because he has the ability to turn into a ninja. Obviously, like the early start of the Strider clan, obviously. But I will say, I actually enjoyed the story mode also in Street Fighter V, and I like at least this version also includes an arcade edition. That is quite nice, I will say. And the fact is, I definitely get a kick out the redesign of Akuma, though I'm glad they added the retro version to play as, because I'll always take the original version of Akuma. last of the honorable mentions. Originally, this was actually in my top 5 favorites list up until this year, actually. Unfortunately, and last honorable mention goes to Tekken 7. Originally, this was probably my number 5 favorite game of this generation, but it got dethroned by a newer game. I did not expect to actually make my top 5 favorite list, but it has. I thoroughly, really enjoyed it, but I will say, nevertheless, this would be like number 6 overall, though it's right beneath number 5. But Tekken 7 held a spot on my list for quite a long time, honestly. And a great story mode. And I will say of the DLC or in general characters, I love Akuma in the game. I like Geese Howard, but I think, surprisingly, I ended up liking Noctis quite a bit, strangely enough. But with that said, let's get on with it. The top 5 favorite fighting games of the 8th console generation. First up is, unfortunately, digital, so I can't show a physical thing. And it is called, it's actually a recent one. I've done so far a playthrough of every character in the story mode. So you can look forward as future DLC characters come around that I will do full story playthroughs of it. So with that said, coming at number 5, favorite game of the 8th console generation goes to Samurai Shodown Reboot. I did not expect it, and this is the game that booted Tekken 7 out as my 5th favorite game of this generation. Goes to Samurai Shodown. So good job, SNK. Good job. You got me hooked. The gameplay, the story, and I love the design and everything, and the entrance of the main boss of the game I think is pretty cool. I'm looking forward to some future DLC characters to play and try more new characters out and get better with the game. There's a few specific characters I want to get better with in Samurai Shodown. And I love the support that I've seen on how many views as well as watch time and everything on my Samurai Shodown videos. I appreciate it, the support that you've shown towards the Samurai Shodown stuff that I've done. And you can, as I said, promise that I will do in the future more Samurai Shodown stuff. It's not over, not by a long shot. I will be doing more gameplay stuff involving Samurai Shodown in the future. So with that said, coming in at number 4, that has actually held a spot on my top 5 for a little while now, since it came out last year. Coming in number 5, favorite games from this console generation. Number 4 goes to Namco Bandai and Soul Calibur 6. Which makes me happy because I was very kind of angry with Soul Calibur 5. I did like Soul Calibur 4, I just felt it was a drop down overall quality wise, and Soul Calibur 5 was just horrible. Soul Calibur 6, I feel like, is Soul Calibur return to form, and I love some of the redesigns, plus I like the added like special supers and stuff in the game, and I love some of the redesigns. I do think they really need to add more DLC like stages and stuff in the game. That is one thing I really hope Soul Calibur 6 does. Not just add DLC characters, please add more DLC. Speaking of characters, you can expect a game playthrough soon of the story with Cassandra. I do have that coming very soon, probably in the next week or two. So stay tuned for that. And I will do a game playthrough of any future DLC character also in Soul Calibur 6. So coming at number 4. Coming in at number 3, favorite game from this console generation is another digital, unfortunately. And that is a game that is called Mortal Kombat X comes in at number 3. It has, in more recent time, has ended up dethroning Mortal Kombat Deception as my number 1 favorite Mortal Kombat game in the whole franchise. I never expected to ever see Deception get dethroned at number 1 spot, but it did, surprisingly. And I'm not at all, in the end, I'm happy. I really love Mortal Kombat X's story mode. It is easily my favorite of the rebooted, definitely of story modes and stuff. Hands down my favorite story mode. I like that they introduced newer characters and stuff into the series. I understand some of the other more hardcore old school fans did not appreciate some of the new characters. I personally did not mind some of the new characters as much as ever, and I like the fact they make Johnny Cage into a character I actually liked, because I never liked Johnny Cage in the old games, honestly. And the fact is, I love Shinnok. I actually, in some ways, like Shinnok more than Shao Kahn. Yes, Shao Kahn will always be the big ultimate baddie of the franchise, but I like that Shinnok, the way they designed, like, did his voice and everything in the game. He felt like he was trying to be, Darth Sidious or Palpatine from Star Wars? That's what it felt like. He was trying to be a Sith Lord, except also an Elder God. Figure that out, if you will. But, love the game, and I especially ended up really liking characters in the XL version. I love Alien, the Xenomorph. Ended up really liking the character a lot. Same thing for Jason Voorhees. Ended up becoming my number 1 favorite character playing with online matches and stuff on MKX. Just because, as a grappler character, he was very useful against all the freaking people spamming Scorpion at me. Seriously, 50-60% everyone I played online only played with Scorpion. So they kept trying to do teleport kick and stuff attacks. All I did was block and do like the triple stab and stuff over and over. Yeah, it's cheap, but they're trying to be cheap too, so it's only right to pay cheap with being cheap. So with that said, coming in at number 2, favorite game of this console generation. Really, number 2 and number 1 end up pretty close overall, surprisingly. Coming in at number 2, a game I ended up going out of my way to owning both versions of on console. Coming at number 2 is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which, of course, I will say once again, most criminally underrated fighting game of the 8th console generation, and I wish more people would appreciate this game. Yeah, the story mode was kind of really ridiculous and stupid to the most part. I still found it popcorn enjoyable and stuff. You know, like popcorn action movie, but popcorn action story mode. I enjoyed it for the most part, and the mechanics of the game is where this game excels. It is easily my favorite fighting game of this console generation, definitely to play online. I like the fan community online of this game. Very passionate. Like myself, I will say this game has some of the most hardcore fans I've seen of any game, honestly, and I appreciate that, as I consider myself a hardcore fan of this and the Marvel franchise as a whole. But comes in at number 2, which means obviously which game comes in at number 1. Since the music's playing in the background, you see the logo. Coming in at number 1 is exclusively, of course, to Xbox One on console. Killer Instinct comes in at number 1. And like I said, it was close with number 2. MVCI, whatever. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. But Killer Instinct, in the end, ended up winning. 1, I love the main boss of the KI game. I think Gargos is a perfect boss. He's cheap, as always, like most bosses are supposed to be, more or less, in fighting games. He is freaking cheap ass with his portal punches. can get annoying at times, but nevertheless, I love a lot of the characters in the game. Probably three of easily my favorite KI characters in general from this game specifically. Design, gameplay, definitely two, probably my top three, or definitely three of my top three characters, I would have to say are Shin Hizako. I like regular Hizako, but gameplay-wise, I like Shin Hizako a little bit more. I also ended up thoroughly enjoying quite a bit. Trying to change the music a little. There. But I ended up thoroughly, surprisingly enjoying. The more I've played, the more I've enjoyed of other characters. I would say I've ended up becoming a pretty big fan of gameplay-wise. Strangely enough, I wasn't expecting, but I actually really like playing as Omen, of all characters. I actually like Omen quite a bit. I'm not sure, maybe because one of his speed kick and stuff reminds me so much of Chun-Li, I'm not quite sure. But he's become one of the three characters I really like playing with the most. Definitely, I would say Omen, Shin Hizako, and the other character I found myself actually enjoying quite a bit in KI is, though, to be fair, one of my all-time favorites, of course, and that being Django. I will say, though, I gotta admit, I really like the evil version, Shadow Django. I think it's really cool design overall. I like the fact it's kind of a cross between Django and Omen combined. But I would say one thing KI has done better than a lot of other fighting game franchises, I think a lot of the female characters in KI are better overall. You have a much more, in general, between male and female or whatever, one of the most diverse rosters of fighters of any fighting game out there. That's one thing you can honestly say about KI. It's very different. You have creatures like Omen, you have creatures like, well, obviously, you have humanoid toads like Rash. You have General Rom. You have Arbiter. And you have quite a few others. Of course, you have Spirits. And you have Sadira, which is a pain to fight. I will definitely say that. But nevertheless, as a whole, Killer Instinct easily gets, well, in the end, gets my #1 slot best fighting game of the 8th console generation for me personally. But leave a comment, tell me, of the games, which ones do you like the most? And overall, in general, just what is your favorite fighting games? I'm kind of curious. And what is your favorite console generation for fighting games? For me, I gotta say, this generation has been really good on the fighting games. Better than the 7th gen. Maybe not as good as the 6th generation, but still, maybe #2 favorite console generation fighting games. But anyways, I'll see everyone next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.